Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. We are your hosts, That Random Guy and Harriet Skelly.
Yeah.
Harriet Skelly is clearly revving to go. So for part A this week, we're going to be covering the Monster of Peladon, and then finishing it off with Planet of the Spiders. And part B will be a comic book arc that starts with, Twilight? The story of it, not Twilight, was it? What's the name of the first part of the Kroton arc?
It's a throwback. The soul of the Cyberman.
I don't know why I was thinking about vampires for some reason. Throwback. The soul of the Cyberman, followed on by the one with the Sontarans in it. What was that one called as well? I feel underprepared, even though I just read it this morning.
That is called Unnatural Born Killers.
Unnatural Born Killers. So that's what's going to be happening, and we'll be finishing off with the
Wondrous box.
The one story I actually remember the name of. So part A, I'm going to kick us off with Monster of Peladon.
Let's do it.
So Monster of Peladon takes place 50 years after the Curse of Peladon, though the Doctor assures Sarah Jane he's only landed a couple of years later. But he's actually landed a whole 50 years after the fact. This intro part reminds me a lot of, but less sappy obviously, of Martha Jones being taken to the world Rose has been to before.
Yeah, I guess.
I was just like,
does,
okay.
It does kind of seem like that actually, yeah, as him being all like, oh yeah, I was totally here with Joe, and...
Yeah. Because even after Centauri brings it up, he's like, oh, you're not with Joe this time? He's like, no, I'm with Sarah now. And I'm just like, that kind of reminds you of something else.
Yeah, but I also love how Sarah Jane does not care at all. She's just like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Like, I'm traveling in time and space. I literally don't care.
But it's not like I have a hard on for this guy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So. Man. And like Sarah, as we've come to know her over season 11, she's just she's just so good at being a companion. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. She gets involved. She's figuring stuff out. Sometimes she's ahead of the Doctor. Actually, a lot of the time she's ahead of the Doctor in the game. And she seems to figure out the secret bad guy villain plot before the secret bad guy villains are aware they've given it away. So
yeah, I think empirically, like if we actually like tallied it up and did a proper judging scenario, Sarah would absolutely be literally the best companion. So I guess that's kind of it. I mean, she's not really like, I guess she's also a crowd favorite, but she's not necessarily a personal favorite.
Yeah, she's not my personal favorite, but I love her though.
She is still actually the best.
Yeah. Sorry, Harriet Skelly and That Random Guy, you're wrong. It's actually Sarah Jane Smith. So Sarah is introduced to the Queen of Peladon. There's a crazy fanatic religious guy. Now, I spoke to Harriet Skelly earlier this week, and you came up with a theory of how religion became powerful again on Peladon, because it got pretty much deposed in the last story.
Well, I mean, looking at it now, compared to how I was thinking of it earlier in the week, it doesn't seem like they actually lost their religious thing to it. I mean, they obviously now know that their god, the name of it escapes me right now. Agador. Is actually just an animal. They even captured one of those animals and put it in like a rancor pit.
They actually do.
Yeah, they actually do that. So I think they must. What's the word I'm looking for? They must have continued this religion on their planet, but not to the same extent, I guess.
Yeah. It's not hocus pocus like it was with her Pesh and Curse.
Exactly. It wasn't. They didn't seem to be that devout about it until he started showing up and started causing havoc. Although it did also look like the miners, who basically are the common folk in the story, they seem to believe it a lot more heavily.
Yeah,
But I guess
a lot more
that's
than the royal family seems to. Like the Queen doesn't seem too phased with Agador. She's like, it's kind of a thing we talk about, like,
yeah.
when she's
But
alone with Sarah.
yeah. But that's kind of the way that that religion was played out in King Henry the Fifth's time, where he sort of just rolled with religion.
Oh right.
And was it? I think it was the fifth. It was the one that cut off lots of his wives' heads.
Oh, the eighth, yeah. When
Eighth, that's the
and he
one.
went along and created the Church of England because he was just like, I want to get a divorce.
Exactly, and the common in an oversight, the common folk just didn't care. You know, they were like, okay, religion is a thing. It's sort of just given to us by our ruling class, really. So I guess it's sort of the thing that they used as that separator, is that the rich and the kings and the queens continued to not believe it because they'd seen it not actually be a thing.
Yeah.
But the common folk continued to believe it in a sort of certain way, which is why the whole thing plays out at all, is that the common folk still believe Agador is wanting to shun the non-believers.
Yeah, shun the non-believers. But yeah, I have to agree with you there. It seems like it's very much a tool for the poor. Because if you look at how Paladin's set up, and they actually set this up in Curse as well, but it's not as apparent in Curse as it is now, that the lower class are a different race.
Yeah.
So that's I love that sort of that interest that there's these two races, and the upper class like have finer hair than the lower class. I don't know if that's meant to be an allegory for anything, but
Yeah, I think it is probably an allegory of some form that they have that people of that hair don't mingle with the people of the finer hair.
Yeah. So
also, on the subject of hair, you know that King Paladon totally had the thing for blondies.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, because his daughter's like got vibrant blonde hair as opposed to like the rest of the upper class. One thing I really liked about this story is it's the first half is written in a way where it looks like it's still the church being the bad guys, like it was in Curse.
Yeah.
But then as you come to see it, you actually see the conflict from the priest's side. I think it's such a good story beat that you start to actually sympathize with the priest. Well, at least I did personally. That the priest was like, the whole reason we're doing this, man, is we're trying to stop our planet from eating itself from the inside out.
Yeah.
And the doctor seems to be like, oh, I totally get behind this. And so at that point, you as the audience member, as well as the doctor, sort of realize that it can't be the church that's at fault here. And it's interesting that the delegates are still playing a role on the planet. They're obviously still, after 50 years, haven't been able to get Paladon up to the technological advancements of the rest of the Galactic Federation. And it's definitely religion holding that back, a bit like it did with us in the Dark Ages, where religion had held us back from progress. But it's not done in a way where it's like, you know, it's evil as maybe a Hollywood film would try to do it, where there's like, you know, the evil threshold of the church. And it's interesting because you don't know for quite some time in the story who actually is the bad guy, because you're throwing this way and the left, like the miners, are they the villains? Are they the one causing this uprise? Is the church causing the uprise? And like there's even some hints that maybe Alpha Centauri is behind it, but like, you know, as a person watching, it can't be Alpha Centauri because he's like, the delegates must do this. and so it's interesting when the Alpha Centauri calls for help and the Ice Warriors turn up and they're completely brutal like they were in the Patrick Troughton era. And it's odd because like when you see them in Curse, they're actually peace loving and they're quite nice. Like I love them in Curse, especially when like Ilsa in Curse is like, you know, Doctor, you know, we're good people. We didn't destroy that robot man in the head. Like the head robot man. It's like, it's great. And then in this one they come out and they're being villainous. And so you know, if the unfortunately this is the point where everything starts to show, and you know it's the Martians. They're going to be the bad guys here. But the good thing is that the first, you know, I'd say about 70% of the story is spent saying, hey, look, who is the bad guy, before it's finally revealed. I think that's really good. I love that Sarah knows pretty much instinctively it's not the church or the miners behind this uprising at all, because early on in the story, she gets lost and therefore finds out the secret base of the bad guys.
Yes.
I love that. Sarah's like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm pretty certain I just found the base for the bad guys.
Sarah Jane Smith.
Yeah, it's
the best investigative journalist ever.
The thing is that she actually uses the investigative part of her title to its full potential within her run in Doctor Who. She is constantly investigating. She's constantly trying to help, who she believes to be the good people. Yeah, even if you look back at Dinosaur Invasion, she was helping that general guy, General Finch, a lot because she believed that he was the person to help, and so she investigated alongside him. And I really love that about Sarah, how she's almost like a humanoid doctor,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but she's not a Mary Sue. She's still got these things of being a human, and she falls prey to her volition because of being a human, that she makes these mistakes, and she's just such a well-rounded character, and they weave her into the stories very nicely. I love in Monster that she brings the idea of woman's lib to Peladon.
Yeah.
Because the Queen, I cannot remember the Queen's name to save myself. You don't happen to have that on hand, do you, Harry Skelly?
Queen. Well, I guess Thar. Oh man, I cannot pronounce that.
Yeah. So Tarilla, or however you say it. She
Thalira. There you go.
Well, tell us in the comments how wrong we are.
Queen Peladon.
Yeah, Queen Peladon. She brings to Sarah's attention that she's not really the leader. It's actually the church, because a woman can't rule. And so, with the church head dying, #spoiler for a 40-year-old story, but the head priest dies. But the thing that I love about this is he actually dies protecting her.
Yeah.
And it's good because right up until that point, because he starts believing the Doctor, he starts wanting to help the Doctor get the Ice Warriors off the planet, that you start to sympathize with him, and when he dies, it actually does work because you actually care, because you find out he's actually a good guy, and the only reason the way he is is because of culture. He's not an asshole by choice, he's an asshole by upbringing. And so it's just such a well-written story, I feel, for all these different elements, especially the amount of characters that are in the story. There's a lot of people in the story, and like main character people, like there's 4 miners that have names, and they constantly have communications, and they even uprise against the head miner, which is interesting. At one point they rebel against their own rebellion leader. I'm like, what's going on?
It feels very much like a first Doctor story in that regard, where it has massively got a lot of things going on.
Very, very first Doctor, especially the amount of conflicts that happen. It sort of reminds me in a way of Reign of Terror. Reign of Terror was in the story with heaps of characters and a lot going on. And who do you believe? Where we get to a point where Ian is in Barbara, this way and that, and the Doctor's caught up in these political strifes. And in another way, it reminds me of the Massacre of St. Bartholomew, another story with heaps of characters, and you don't know who the good guy and the bad guy is, because the Doctor is literally dressed up as one of the lead villains. So I definitely agree with you there. This feels like a first Doctor era story. There's so many talking heads. They have a little bit of a reference to the first Doctor era as well, with saying it's Galaxy 5.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because with Galaxy 4 being where the Draven are from, and
I love how the galaxies are numbered as well. That is the funniest thing to me, because I'm guessing that they assume that the Galaxy 1 is the Milky Way, and then they've counted the ones that are closest to us. So the next closest one is number 2, which would be Andromeda, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5.
That's
That's
what they've
so
done.
Ridiculous.
And I reckon it would have been the delegates behind that as well. The delegates
but it's like
Maverick Chen, maybe.
It's so ridiculous, because it's the same sort of thing that happens in Star Trek and stuff, where they're like, we're going to call this the Alpha Quadrant because that's where Earth is. Yeah.
Exactly. I suppose it all comes down to human nature at the end, where we want to be number one. But I mean, with the other aliens being in command long before we had command of the skies, I don't see that working somehow. But
but
Sci-Fi.
they're still the ones who are like, we're here, number one.
Yeah, number one, probably Maverick Chen. Only Maverick Chen, can be in Galaxy 1. So with this all played out, and they find out, and they stop the Ice Warriors, mostly using heat. and some radio signals. The Doctor ends up saving the day.
He does it
Thriller,
in a fantastic way, though. With using the Agador machine
Yeah.
against them.
I love that, especially since like the Agador machine's got like that disintegration beam.
Yeah, and it's
It's
like pairing this ghost of Agador all over the place. It's so cool.
I love, like, with that Ice Warrior, he walks into that room, and then the Agador kills him, and the other Ice Warrior's like, I'm just gonna leave.
Oh yeah, with Agador, like they're firing at the door, trying to get into the room that controls this, and Doctor finally manages to get the machine working. It kills 2 of the Agador soldiers, two of the Frost soldiers, and then this guy just like he looks up and he's like, oh, and then just walks out with a sickness. He's like, all right, I'm done here.
You know what? No, actually, I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna go back to Mars, even though we don't live there anymore. Catch you later. Yep. And so so this all wraps up nicely. I love again that Sarah Jane is an integral part of the narrative, and again, not a Mary Sue. You know, she's got these frailties of being a human being. And I love that they don't make it a frailty of being a woman, like a lot of science fiction of the time did. It's a frailty of actually just being not a super alien, you know?
Yeah.
And so the Doctor and her zip off, and they go into the third Doctor's final adventure, Planet of the Spiders. And Harriet Skelly, take us away.
Well, this one is it's quite an interesting one. We start off with some pretty interesting things going on, with the Doctor taking some interest in the idea of what's the word?
Psychokinesis?
Psychokinesis and ESP stuff, and they go. He takes the Brigadier to he takes it to a show of psychics, basically, and just the look on their faces as they're like waiting for the person they want on show to come up. It's just like the Brigadier just like giving him that look like, why am I here, Doctor? What are you doing? It's so beautiful.
I love when they announced that belly dancer and the Brigadier sits up straight. He's like, "Ooh, okay."
He's like, this should be worth it right now.
And when she finishes dancing, he goes, "You know, I was totally looking at that scientifically, of course, Doctor." Oh, Brigadier. So a man of flesh.
Great stuff. But anyway, at the same time, Mr. Yates is talking with good old Sarah Jane about his adventures that he's been having in between being fired from unit, and he has discovered a weird cult-esque thing going on.
It's like like hyper Buddhism.
Yeah, like that's the weird thing is that at the end of the story, we find out that the leader of this monk Tibetan retreat, I guess, is actually a Time Lord who has developed the ability to teleport with his mind, basically becoming his own TARDIS. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And the fact that he creates a Watcher as well, like knowingly creates a Watcher, I thought was really interesting.
That's the thing is that he's the one who trained the Doctor in how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
he's the hermit the Doctor brings up a lot.
Yeah, that's so crazy that's in there, and it doesn't get talked about enough. that his guru was there, his master in the arts of everything was totally there, was totally just chilling out with a Watcher that he created himself, and then he regenerated into that Watcher, and then made the third Doctor become the fourth Doctor as well at the end. Yeah. Just this needs to get talked about more.
Yeah, his teachers because it reminds me of when the third Doctor talks about his teacher in Atlantis, and how the third Doctor had that really bad experience as a child, which I'm guessing is actually the funeral he went to that he mentions in his 12th incarnation, his actual 12th Peter Capaldi incarnation, and he mentions that environment then, and I'm wondering if that's after the fact, because he mentions his hermit, his teacher, which we now know lives on Earth at this time, had taught him to just sort of see beyond it. Yeah, I thought it was good.
So I think that's obviously playing into the story, that deal, but the leader, that Time Lord, the Guru, he's he's got together a bunch of humans and who are basically doing this. Basically, I guess in the same region of having the same problems as the Doctor did at that time, and helping them, such as people like Michael Yates and some other people. But he seems to have overstepped his bounds a little bit and taught them some powers that they shouldn't really have.
Yeah. I'm guessing
and-
it's like Time Lord psychic powers as well.
Well, I guess it's just the. I guess really it's basically contact. It seems.
Yeah, agreed.
But they have to, because humans don't have that capability by themselves. He's had to like empower them and have them collectively do it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. I guess. Eventually, it seems that the blue crystal that the Doctor got from Metabilis 3 has a play in this.
The Doctor almost died getting in Metabilis 3.
Yep, he almost died getting in Metabilis 3. Has a part to play in this because he receives it in a note from Joe, and after meeting up with one of these ESP guys, he gets killed by it, as these Tibetans are doing their little chanting thing. They don't, well, not Tibetans really, they're just monks at this point, I guess. It's not from Tibet, just learn Tibet stuff. Not even Tibet stuff, Time Lord stuff, come on.
Just before we continue though, am I the only person that felt really uncomfortable that Time Lord was meant to be Asian?
Yeah, I guess
it was super
kind of
uncomfortable. I was like, oh, you're supposed to be Asian looking. Especially when he regenerates and the guy's got like the dark eyeliner on to try and make his eyes look more oriental, and I was just like, I'm not comfortable watching this.
Yeah, it is really weird. They didn't really need to do that considering he's a Time Lord. They could have just made him a normal English guy if they didn't have an Asian actor to play him. Like that's the simplest.
Yeah, why don't they just reuse the guy from Mind of Evil?
Yeah, they could have just used somebody else, or then it could have been anyone really. It didn't have to be someone who looks Tibetan. It could have been anyone else, and then that just would have been fine, you know.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't have even had to explain it, because right at the end they would explain he's a Time Lord. Oh, that's why he didn't look Tibetan at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez. But yeah. So during this Monkin ritual, they eventually bring forth an entity. I'm not sure if this was planned, but they bring forth. Yeah, they bring forth a giant spider. Well, not like giant. Like that's the funny thing, is that there is a comment made in this that no spider that big exists, but there is actually a spider that is as big as that. That is in Australia. I think it's called a bird eater.
Yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't actually eat birds, by the way. It's not actually a carnivorous spider, but it's big enough to attack and eat a bird. So that's how big the spider is. But yeah, there is a comment saying that there no spiders like that exist on Earth, but that's not right. Anyway, it is like more of a black spider, a tarantula spider, whereas the Goliath bird-eating tarantula, which I am now seeing on my screen, is actually a white with black spots. So, yeah. Anyway, from that, the spider attaches itself to the back of Lupton, who's one of the monks, or one of the.
There is something on your back.
Yeah, which is totally part of that, and I'm really happy that gets played out later with that sort of thing. Except that it's not. I guess it's weird that sort of has the same transference to it, that these temporal beings. Yeah. Doctor Who, man. Doctor Who.
It's interesting because
like
when it happens to Donna Noble, it's a beetle, and what's interesting is the Spanish maid on Christmas Day points at her back and says, "You have a spider on your back" in Spanish.
Yeah. And
I was like, "Huh, well played, Russell T Davies."
Yes, he finally uses some stuff from before. Yeah, it's quite a thing that. Where eventually it seems to vanish on his back, but it doesn't vanish, of course. It is sort of become entwined with his mind, and it actually seems to actually be there, and not. It seems to be hiding itself. I guess with the same sort of way that the beetle hid itself on Donna. But of course, the Time Lord Guru was able to see it because he's got the power. I got the power. Anyway, from there, Lupton and the spider seem to come to an agreement. As the spider speaks into his mind, there's obviously a very powerful minded creature, which is quite an interesting thing as well. And a bunch of stuff happens. There's a fantastic car chase with...
Oh my god, how fantastic is that
It was
car chase?
so good with the Whomobile and Bessie and a random gyrocopter. So good.
And then
and then there's
that huge chase with the hover boats.
Yeah, and then there's a boat and a hover... Oh man, it was so good. It really sums up the last story of the Third Doctor.
They put as much James Bond in the story as possible, man.
Having a James Bond moment was great. Yeah, and then he gets back because this is all to steal the blue crystal from the Doctor. As apparently these spiders want it. It's not explained at this point why, but it's simply you'll find out by the end of the story, of course, why they want it in complete detail. But the short of the answer is that they are from Metabilis 3 and they want it back to Metabilis 3. But they are also in the future of Metabilis 3, and for some reason have been summoned back in time as well. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. From there, Doctor and Sarah Jane go back to the Tibetan place. They try to track down this Lupton person, trying to track down the blue crystal. The guy there, Tommy, who seems to have some sort of brain damage of some sort.
He's intellectually handicapped.
Well, I don't think it was like a birth thing. I think he was actually in an accident and had damaged his brain.
Oh, really?
Because I think that's what happened to him is the blue crystal healed that part of his brain.
Yeah, I loved that scene so much when he's like reading.
Yeah, and he figures out that he was like trying to figure out words after his brain was being repaired.
I really love that scene because I've got a real soft spot for characters like that, especially like people who are adults and can't read. That always gets to me because I see reading as like a sort of like something that's sacred, really, the ability to do that. And when people can't, I always I feel sorry for them that they miss out on this beautiful art. And then like Tommy's reading a little book about a tiger. Yeah, I love that. He got it from his mum, and as he's reading it, the blue crystal increases his knowledge basically, and it turns him into an indestructible Terminator who's extremely intelligent.
No, it doesn't do that.
He's like, I love how super insanely strong Tommy becomes.
Okay,
awesome.
It makes him a badass.
Yeah,
it does make him a badass.
Makes him a badass.
But the thing is that his badassery is mainly because the blue rock was the thing that made his brain reconnect itself together. So he was sort of overpowered. He had a different kind of brain to everyone else. So when the spider people try to like zap him with their mind lasers, he doesn't get affected by it. And he just sort of stands there and takes it. He's like, yeah, what? You can't do nothing. It was great. But yeah, anyway. He steals the blue crystal, and later on through his story, we find out that it repairs his mind, that sort of stuff. But of course, Sarah Jane and Lupton goes off back to Metabilis 3 with the spider. And Sarah Jane, being the investigative journalist that she is, decides to get herself warped off there as well. We find that there is also a bunch of humans there already, and that's when we figure out that it is actually the future of Metabilis 3 from when the Doctor was there. That is also past human colonization to the point of where some spiders were also brought along, and the blue crystals that were on Metabolus 3 apparently made them more intelligent as well,
Yeah.
and eventually made them a sentient life form, which is an interesting idea at all, that spiders would be the next intelligent creature on Earth. Probably wouldn't be. Probably would be octopi, honestly. Yeah, or maybe a bird of some sort. Anyway, from there, the Doctor gets back in the TARDIS and is like, I know where they've gone because I'm the Doctor. That's what I do. Gets in the TARDIS, flies off to Metabolus 3. Totally James Bond karate chops a bunch of guys.
At least 30.
Yeah, he
Just
a lot of people, and then he gets zapped by the mind laser, which apparently does a lot of damage to him. I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I'm guessing that the spider intelligence is high enough to the point of being able to affect a Time Lord, I guess, which seems to be the case, as they're way capable of overpowering human minds. So I suppose like close enough to be able to do that. Yeah. So things get a bit crazy from here on out, where they get all on Metabolus 3 now, getting captured by spider people, doing crazy stuff. Sarah Jane getting mind controlled by the Queen Spider. The Doctor ending up.
I love why that happens though, because the Queen Spider's losing her power over the rest of her brood, and they're revolting against her. So she's like, "I'm going to use Sarah Jane to help me."
Yeah, it was great. And then the Doctor meets up with the old one. No, it's not the old one. The great one. Sorry, I'm thinking more of along the lines of some other godlike creatures we've seen. Anyway, we eventually find out that this great one is actually an enormous spider, much bigger than any spider on Earth, by the way. That is the reason why it seems to be the actual controller of all of these, all of the other spiders that are on the planet, even to the point of seeming to be their one point of weakness, where once it dies, they all die.
Yeah. They're all psychically linked to her. She's like a hive mind, essentially.
It does seem, not in the same way. I think that they sort of are offspring. They are connected to her sort of symbiotically, where if they survive because she survives, but if she dies, they die, sort of deal. But it doesn't matter to her if they die, I guess, and that's why there's a sort of individuality between them, and why one of them is trying to revolt against them. One is trying to control them all, that sort of stuff. It's kind of interesting idea of a civilization that sort of things exist, which has also happened in sci-fi as well. I won't go into that detail. Anyway, eventually, of course, the Doctor does get out, find his way out. Sarah has apparently managed to develop the ability to teleport, which is actually because she's been controlled by the Queen. They get back to the monastery, I guess you can call it, and meet up with Tommy and the Guru. And then the Guru gets zapped and is all like, "Oh no, I'm totally gonna die. Actually, I'm totally not gonna die." Lol, jokes. And then totally regenerates into his apparent son, who he said he was. He said he was his son, and then it turns out that he's actually just his watcher that he's projected. It's so good.
I love when his watcher's having a conversation with them, and then he just disappears. I'm like, what the hell? He's like, oh, okay, I got used to regenerate.
And then as he regenerates, he finishes the sentence. Yeah. It's so good.
So good.
Man. Yeah, and the Guru basically fills in the Doctor, because obviously the Doctor has not taken a lot of his lessons to heart, apparently, and points out the Doctor's greed and his theft of the blue crystal, and basically tells him to,
like an allegory for stealing the TARDIS.
Yeah, it is. It is because it's a blue thing. Yeah, it totally is. But anyway, he tells him to basically return it. And the doctor's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." Goes to return it, in knowing that that is going to be the end of his body, as well. That he knows that he was probably not going to like properly die and just regenerate. Which is a fantastic mirror to what happens with 10 at the end.
Right.
He knows where he has to go to die. He knows that it has to happen, but he doesn't want to. But 3 is totally accepting of it. Totally does.
He's just like, I'm
like
just
a
gonna
wine.
regenerate. Yeah, definitely.
Although I guess 11 would kind of feel like he's sort of running out of lives at some point.
Yeah, but like even 11 takes it like a champ. He rages
Eventually,
a whole
at the-
war. Like he
at the-
actually
at
does
the
a second
end.
time war.
At the end, he does. At the end, he takes it like a champ when he dies. But up until then, he was totally acting like it. He was like, I don't want to do it. I'm going to go have 4 specials and not do it. So, yeah. I don't know. But, yeah, right at the very end, he takes it like a fantastic champ. And so does 3. Where he, takes the crystal. Even though that he thinks that it's probably gonna mean the end for a lot of things. And then as he's doing it, he realizes, oh, it's actually gonna totally ruin the Great One and all of the spiders. Here you go, take the blue crystal. I don't care.
Yeah. He's like, if you do that, you're gonna cause some serious damage. She's like, whatever, and he's like, all right.
Yep. And then she totally ruins herself and all the spiders. As she explodes from her own. She destroys her own brain with her own mental power, amplified by the blue crystal web that she's got going on.
But the thing is with that whole like mind collapse, the radiation caused from it actually kills the Third Doctor.
Well, it was the whole it was the radiation in the room itself that was killing him. From the moment he stepped in, even if he didn't actually hand over the blue crystal, he still would have died. We still would have lost this body. So he did that's why he was accepting of it. Because he knew it was just going to happen anyway. And then he finally manages to make it back to the TARDIS. And then 3 weeks later, Sarah Jane and Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart are talking about it. And then Doctor comes back in his TARDIS, falls out of the door, lying there on the ground, almost about to die. And then I think you better give the speech that he does to Sarah Jane.
I had to face my fears.
Was a tear, Sarah Jane. No, don't cry. Well, there's life. And then
like I love how he actually dies mid-sentence. He doesn't do the whole like Hollywood give a speech and then die.
Yep.
He actually passes away mid-sentence, and then. Choji or Chanpo or the leader of the cult, as Sarah runs through his different titles. He's like, hey, the Doctor actually proper died. I'm gonna help him regenerate and then get out of here. Sure.
Well, he wasn't like he proper dead. He was like, he's probably gonna regenerate, but I'm gonna let it happen quicker. And then just does the magic box gesture when he's like, Alakazam, and then just fades away.
He's great. Like, bye guys. I'm gonna go find another planet that probably doesn't have douchebags on it. Bye. I love how he can teleport without a TARDIS, and that's why he really takes a jab at the Doctor. He's like, you ran away in a TARDIS. He's like, why don't you just be cool like me and teleport through the pure sheer mental will? And it's like, I was running with my granddaughter in the hand of Omega, so
I was running away from a lot of things, yo. Anyway, and then the Third Doctor ends. And the Fourth Doctor begins.
Now, this is indeed the last story of season 11, and it's actually the end of my favorite run of Who. Now, obviously, we're going to continue doing Whoscussion, but these first 11 seasons are my favorite block. I can't wait to be told I'm wrong in the comments, but I feel the first 11 seasons that's the premium Doctor Who. That's the gold standard. And we go on to the Fourth Doctor. Now, he's great. Every Doctor in the end is great. But for me, it will always be the first 11 seasons. This story, as Harry Scully talked about, he does the most James Bonding possible. in the
Yeah.
story. It's great.
It's really like a great swan song for the
yeah,
third Doctor.
exactly. He does as much third doctoring as physically possible.
Even like having Bessie and the Whomobile in a car chase.
Yeah, one
Oh,
car chase, both of his cars. Like I was like, really?
it's so good.
So great. And especially how they had that gyrocopter, which is actually from Thunderball, the James Bond movie.
Yep.
And I was
Yep.
like, really? Come on, guys! Like, just because he's totally the James Bond Doctor, you'll have the Thunderball gyrocopter in it.
Yep.
I love that. I was just half expecting it to have the song that's in like the first 5 James Bond, you know, while they were doing the chase. And
Guess they couldn't get licensing on
yeah,
that one.
exactly. Yeah, BBC were like, yeah, we don't want to charge MGM money for that. So, so much karate chopping, so much Doctor Who-ness, and just a great end for the the third Doctor rather. And I just love that he just the thing is he dies like solemnly. You know, it's a very humble death, and it's not like over the top like, you know, maybe the fifth Doctor's is or Crying 10 is. He just sort of just goes out like a person, you know?
Yeah.
He dies like
I mean,
a human.
It does feel like, yeah, it doesn't feel nearly as drawn out as as many other Doctors do, but it's very in line with first and second's regeneration cycles. Even the fourth's is pretty standard as well within that. So yeah, the send off of Doctors doesn't really have any other equal, really, because there's no replacement of characters without like a in between moment in any other show. Because most shows, when they get rid of a character, they'll do a couple of episodes where that character isn't there, and then they like get sad about it for 2 episodes, and then somebody comes in to replace it for a couple of episodes, and people get angry about them trying to replace people, blah blah blah. But with Doctor Who, you don't have to do that. You just have an episode.
I can't believe he left me like that, Mum. Rose, this is why you're a terrible character, honey. Clara, for reasons no one understands, you don't like the fact the Doctor regenerated, even though you met all 11 original Doctors.
Yeah.
This makes no sense whatsoever, Stephen Moffat.
Just like that. You know?
Yeah, whereas Classic Who, you're right. Classic Who, they did it. They handled it so much better because like he's still the same. You know, he's got a different face and a different personality, but he's still the Doctor. Just shut up and roll with it.
Yeah, like people still had to get used to the fact that he was a different person. Of course, like the Brigadier had being the second and third Doctor. Sarah Jane is obviously going to have to get used to having the fourth Doctor, considering he is a stark contrast to the third.
That is yours.
You know, but they could do it in a story. You know, they do it in one episode rather than having it be a prolonged arc of people not being able to deal with the fact that they're different types of character, even though that they are still the same character. They have different traits, of course. So it plays out exactly the same as it would in any other story when you're replacing a role. Like trying to think of an example, like when shows come back to me. Just say like on the Starship Enterprise, if one of the comms officers dies, you know, one of the lead ones, or even they just like go off to another ship, they do that thing where they spend a couple of episodes being sad about it, then they have a couple of episodes with the replacement getting to know him, and then them becoming a main character. We don't have to do that in Doctor Who, because that, even though it's still replacing a main character, it happens instantaneously.
Yeah.
Because it's actually that person changing, not being removed and being replaced. So yeah, it's a real interesting idea, regeneration as a whole, and I say this a lot every time we go through a regeneration process, but it's a fantastic device that Doctor Who can only have, and it's so good.
Absolutely perfect. Well, on that somber note, we move on to part B. See you all there.